listening to Unraveled, the Avec podcast.
Welcome to Unraveled, the Artwork podcast. With me are my co-presenters Nina Kettiger, Swiss-French artist, and Philippe Hindahl, writer based in Berlin. My name is Bernard Vienat, and I am art historian, writer, curator, and founder of Artwerk.
If there is one event in the art world that is able to attract everyone's attention, it is certainly the Venice Biennale. It can be kind of hard to keep track of all the shows and pavilions at the Venice Biennale, so to not leave you completely alone with the multitude of events and emerging trends of the art world, we devoted 2 special episodes of Unravel to the 58th edition of the Biennale. During the preview, Philippe and Bernard interviewed the curator Charlotte Laubard, who invited Pauline Boudry and Renate Lorenz to exhibit in the Swiss pavilion. Then we talked to Lorenzo Sandoval, one of the artists of the Finnish pavilion, and we discussed their works, their views on collaboration, the national structure of the Biennale, and of course their respective roles as curators and artists. This will be followed by a second episode in which we speak with Irene Campolmi, who's the co-curator of the Estonian pavilion, and Dane Mitchell, who shows at the pavilion of New Zealand. But first, let's hear a brief introduction of the Biennale.
Bernard, can you tell us a little bit about the Biennale? Why is it so essential in the art landscape?
Well, it seems now that most major cities have their own biennale, but in fact, Venice is where it all started in 1895. 2019 marks the 58th edition. Well, you might say there is a mistake, but it's not a math error. 2 biennales didn't take place during World War I, and between 1942 and 1948, the art exhibitions were cancelled due to World War II and its consequences.
Well, you said art exhibitions, but are there other kinds of biennials in Venice?
Yes, indeed. In the 30s, a music biennale began, then the theater and film festival, and finally the architecture biennale. As you probably know from the film festival, in every edition a special jury awards the Golden Lion. We will see in the second episode of our Venice special that this prize was the subject of uncommon stories.
I'm excited to hear more about this, but who won it this year?
In fact, 2 lions are awarded. Arthur Jaffa won as Best Artist in the Central Exhibition for his film The White Album, which is in equal measure an essay, a poem, and a portraiture reflecting upon the issue of race. For the national Venus, the jury picked the pavilion of Lithuania.
Does it mean that 2 different exhibitions take place within the biennial?
There are 2 main shows in the central exhibition on one side, and 87 national pavilions on the other, which are still curated by different individuals or groups. In fact, there are many shows if we count all the collateral venues in foundations and in palazzi across the city. Within the biennale itself, one curator is appointed to helm the main venue. This year it is the American Ralph Rugoff, and he chose the title May You Live in Interesting Times. Another particularity this year is that he decided to bring works by the same artist to both the Arsenale and to the Central Pavilion.
We should also point out that the Central Pavilion is situated in the center of the Giardini, where you find the pavilions of the different nations as well.
Right, but only of some of those nations, indeed. Those pavilions represent mostly Western nations. Most of the other countries have to rent spaces somewhere in the city, and these are pretty expensive. But we will discuss the question of the National Pavilion in more detail in the second episode. It will be released on the 7th of July, and I really looking forward about this discussion because it is fascinating to understand the political and cultural issues result from historical decisions and choice of the acceptance or not of certain nation inside the Giardini.
Despite of the many venues all over Venice, most of the visitors are like us and they begin in the Giardini, right?
Yes, the Giardini is a popular place to start. In addition to the central building, there are 30 national pavilions. To give an historical idea, the Belgian was the first one and was built in 1907. The latest one, the Austrian is a bit further behind, opened in 1988. Right at the entrance, there is a Swiss pavilion. We went straight away to see the works of the artists Pauline Boudry and Renate Lorenz.
Switzerland first participated in the Biennale in 1920, and since 1951, the Alpine country has its own pavilion in the Giardini. In the spirit of post-war modernism, the architect Bruno Giacometti, who is the brother of Alberto, the famous sculptor, designed a structure that creates kind of a fluid interchange between inside and outside. And unlike a lot of its neighbor from the pre-war years, the Swiss pavilion doesn't really make a monumental statement. You know, there are no giant columns or crazy stairs. Everything is leveled and easily accessible. And this year, the building hosts an installation and a video work by a Berlin-based artist duo, Pauline Boudry and Renate Lorenz. The immersive piece turned the entire pavilion into a club, very dark, very loud music. And this whole representation has been curated by Charlotte Laubard, and she's the director, the head of the art school in Geneva. And she researches, the use value of art and the impact of the digital and which kind of cultural changes did that really bring about. Charlotte was also the director of the Museum for Contemporary Arts in Bordeaux, and among many other curatorial positions, she was also the artistic director of the Nuit Blanche in Paris, which is an all-night festival that has always been dedicated to performance and art. Bernard and Philippe met Charlotte during the opening of the Salon Suisse, another venue organized by Pro Helvetia, which is a Swiss foundation for culture. The interview took place in the Venice School of Art, which is why the recording might be a little noisy, but it was really insightful. And for additional documentation, you can always find some pictures on our website.
So the first question might be about the title itself and moving backward, because we were wondering what about it was related to. If it was maybe this nostalgical aspect or an utopian one or maybe an economical one. And so how was your thought about it?
I think it's all at the same time, actually. This is why it's interesting, this expression. It starts with Pauline and Renate being interested in this story. They heard about this Kurdish woman from the guerrilla who are, as you know, fighting. And and they wear their shoes reverse in order to fool the enemies when they walk. They go in one direction, but with the shoes reversed, it seems that they're walking on the other direction. Pauline and Renate thought, oh, that's interesting, because they were thinking about what the actual migration that we are experimenting on a political and social level right now, worldwide. It's not something particularly Swiss, actually. And then they decided to really look at the different senses of this moving backward expression, this backwardness, what it means. And it's very interesting because what is at stake in the film, all its meaning, backwardness for us, Occidental people, it means a regression, But for people from other places with other culture, it can really mean something else. And actually you can see how much it is linked to our obsession with a linear time heading towards progress, an infinite progress. And we know that this vision that Occident has imposed to the rest of the world has some dead ends. So we have moving backwards anyway, because the dead ends are here. If you think of the ecological disaster we're creating because of this vision and everything. So that's one point. Then they were really interested about how concretely we move backward. I mean, what does it mean, moving backward? Physically, you know? And that's how they started to think of those. They were thinking of this woman, the Kurdish woman, walking. And then they started to think about all these other backward movement. And it brought them to dance at some point, obviously, because, I mean, when we do backward movements, it's mostly into the realm of dance, actually. And it's specific dance. What is interesting in the project is that it's not any dance. It's like dance that, I mean, they are brought by the performers because of their background, but they choose this performance because of their background. So it's really about postmodern dance against classical dance, which is all about going forward. It's going to be about hip-hop, and hip-hop is a critique of, you know, the hegemonic white culture. And there's also other dance involved, like I could see like buto dance, you know, this Japanese dance from the post-war. I mean, we call it the post-atomic war. So it's really dance that are expressing an opposition to another system which is hegemonic, or dance are really expressing some kind of a dissent or resistance to. And that's how things combine at some point between like the political background of the project and the body.
It's the most physical one, so.
Yeah. And actually, in this film, what is interesting also is that it's the first film of Pauline and Renate where they don't speak, nobody speak. And you can see that because the performer at some point, they have the micro and they decide not to speak. And for me, it's really related to the reactionary time. We are in a time where, because of the internet and the social networks, new forms of speech has arisen, which is very simplistic, you know, that also gave birth to these new hate speeches that we thought they were on the side of our history, so we are going really backward with that. And the bet of Pauline and Renate in this project is maybe we should leave the words and try to find new way of communicating through bodies, and that's how they go to dance, and that's how they go to the nightclub. Maybe we go to this collaborative thing.
That's something I've been thinking a lot about lately, about club culture and how to exhibit it, because as you may know, there's at the moment I know of 3 major exhibitions that deal with club culture, and I think there are 2 ways to go about it. A sort of way that wants to create an immersive state and another that tries to create a distance. Maybe you can say something about how to exhibit club culture.
I mean, I'm from this generation I've been raised with techno music, you know, so I've been thinking a lot about that, of course. It's not the first time, it's behind some of my projects. And actually, what is interesting with Pauline and Renate is that they immediately say it's not really a club, it's an abstract club. I would say it's a meta club, let's say. It's just giving enough twist to feel like you're in a club, but it always brings you to the fact that you are not participating in an illusion, you know. So I like the balance in the project because it's you have you go from the backside of a stage, you know, and the stage has been an element recurrent in the work of Pauline and Renate. It's more like the gay club stage, you know. And you see the video, and at some point, when the curtain arrives and flashes, then you realize, you are yourself on stage. So there's never, and at the end of the project, you have the image cut, and then you have the light show, as if the lights and the stage were dancing, basically. So Actually, and then, sorry, I continue, but then you go from the corridor and you go in the other room, and then you arrive at the back of a bar, and it's a bar. You understand it's a decor because you see the wood structure, and then you go on the side and you have the bar, but that's not a real bar. There's nothing to drink, but you see all these trompe-l'œil paintings of different bars, and it's the favorite bar of Pauline and Renate, so it's very specific there. And so there's always this thing of you get into the work and immediately you are pushed back. So you understand the mise à distance is there, basically, what I like very much with this project is that you completely share the emotion, but at a very regular time, you bounce back and you understand, with the distance, you understand that you are participating. You are interpreting a representation, basically.
You mean that there were no speech inside the video, yeah. But I had the impression that the writing was really present. So may you maybe develop a bit about the place of writing in this pavilion?
Alors, I would say there's not much writing, but there's a lot of communication. And the communication from the video part is coming from bodies, It's very interesting, each performer has its own solo, and at some point they start to share and synchronize. And when they start to synchronize, the music arrives, And then immediately you have this emotional, empathy that's function, synchronicity of dance is really interesting because this is how you communicate with bodies, and that's why it's so important. And the whole project is about that. After you have the deep house music, which is the music of the LGBT club, basically, and they wanted really to address that very specifically because it's DJ sprinkled music, So really, you want to dance at some point, yourself as a viewer. And this is the point. The point is that the club is where people can communicate through bodies and they feel related. And this is really the point. You can create a community even if it's ephemeral, but you beyond differences, because then you care for people you might not ever see in your life on the other side, and this is the beauty of the project, I think.
And how come the choice to make it more or less participative? Because we might have imagined the bar as an active bar where people might get drinks, for instance.
I think it was too 90s. I'm coming from the relational aesthetics. I know all about it, So it was too easy. We wanted to keep the experience into some form of ambiguity. You never know exactly where you are, and we wanted the people to really get interested on the journal, So we didn't want to put too much scenario in this place of the bar.
Yeah, when I was speaking about writing, I was thinking about the journal. So maybe you could develop a bit on this letter.
Again, you feel like participating because it's letters addressed to the viewer, So you immediately get the thing that it's for you, and also the way. I think it's very smart, these letters, and they've been doing that for a long time already. But it brings a level of communication which is more immediate, even if the ideas are important and everything. It's not too theoretical in some way. And so you rely to it very quickly, actually. And these letters, these letters were written by different people. You have choreographers, you have artists, you have theoreticians, you have activists. And they're coming from very different backgrounds and different places in the world, in order to really address this backwardness from different point of view and to show the, polysemy of the notion, This is it, You can't communicate with speech because we've been So, you are addressing the politics of affect, basically. So, and the politics of affect that we experience through the social networks, it has to go through embodiment within the realm of art experience. And then afterwards, you have the theory.
I think that's the really interesting particularity of the Swiss pavilion is that you have like this maybe first more emotional aspect and then the cognitive one. But like when a visitor is going through a biennale, he has a lot of stimulation, and I was wondering how you bring him to read this journal.
Well, as you could see in the room in the garden, we don't know where we are. We see this bar. It's not a sculpture completely. It sounds like a decor, but it's a bit deceptive, and so you don't have anything to, really. It's not an exhibition per se over there. And we have all this pile of, journal. We created these benches everywhere, and in the biennale, it's very difficult to find benches actually.
Yeah, I mean, like because you have this because there is this national character, and what we hear in the press conference from Pauline and Renate that they were like really as well critic against the institution. And it seems that as curator, you have a bit this role between like the institution and the artist. So how did you deal with that?
When I was nominated to curate the pavilion, the first question I had before saying yes was like how much critical the project can be. We know how artists are. I mean, it's normal. You are representing a country. How much are you happy with representing a country? It's complicated. And Paul Vessia, they said to me that, they were okay for everything. The only thing, the limit was at critic ad personam. That means like criticizing somebody in specific. Which is okay, it's already something, so that was nice, I thought. And during the whole preparation of the project, I could see how much, I was very happy to see how much Paul Bessia they trust us, because when you read the letter of the artist, it's quite tough, and they accepted it. So that means we really had a lot of freedom to do the project.
There's something we were wondering about a lot, and about this concept of a pavilion representing a nation, and we were wondering where's the specificity of this project for the Swiss pavilion.
When you will become the curator of the Swiss pavilion, I'm sure you're going to be really annoyed by the Swissness question, but I will reply to it. So, of course, you have to think about that. And I love Swiss art and Swiss folklore. I'm a big fan of Valentin Caron. But I wanted to do something that was addressing something broader than Switzerland, actually. And I live in Geneva since 6 years, and I have a very specific experience of what is Switzerland from a Geneva point of view. And Geneva is a city where you have 48% of foreigners, it's a very special place, and it's a place where you are on a daily basis more dealing with, big issues of the world than with what's happening in this valley, because the price of the milk is rising or something like that, which is important too. I don't diminish it, but so for me this project is more Geneva. And actually what is interesting also is Pauline did the art school of Geneva, and she did the class of Catherine Clélos, and Catherine Clélos implemented the first curatorial politics project in a Swiss art school, and that was really avant-garde at that time. I'm talking about the 90s, and you can feel that in the work, and that's, so for me there is something Swiss, but it may be not the postcard Swiss we know, but it's more like the Geneva Swiss, very political, bit critical, and looking at what's happening in the world.
The critical aspect of the pavilion have maybe something to do as well with the vision of the art that you are as well as at least communicating in the press release. you are highlighting the use and value of the art. Could you maybe explain us a bit, for you, what is this use and value of art?
I'm more and more annoyed by the way how, Occidental aesthetic is framing the power of art, and is framing it's so narrow. And I think also in the art world we went to some dead ends because we've been pushing the boundaries of this narrowness, which is, the object to contemplate and become fetishized, and then we feel like at the church in the museum, and I think art has more agency than that, and I'm very much interested about how an artwork can be a social actor, and has a role in society. It's really, for me, it's embody. It's a person, you always project intention to the artwork, and I think this is the most interesting part of art, actually, and it gives more legitimacy to art within society when you take it from this point of view instead of, reifying the object in a, white church, it's nice too, but it's one of the power of art, I would say.
So I was wondering, how can you speak as well to another kind of public who is not going to the museum, for instance?
In the case of Venice Biennale, I think we of course, our experience is the one of the opening day. So you have 30,000 people from the art who are coming from everywhere in the world. But actually, the Venice Biennale, it's 650,000 people, and from this number you have 400,000 people visiting the Swiss pavilion. So it's much broader than just the art, and even the art lovers. It's really broad. And you have to think that about 200,000 are people that are coming from schools or university. A young audience, and that's where I think we have a responsibility. I think it's very important for us, for example, to address this issue of queerness, for example, for this young audience. It's when you realize that you might not fit to binary gender, it's a horrible moment when you realize that you have people that will never understand you anymore because you are in this case. So I think it's really important to show that it's possible, and that we're hoping that society is going to evolve very much on this topic, for example.
Thanks so much.
The first week is always a marathon of opening, exhibitions, and dinners, and so on. So Philippe and Bernard met the second guest, Lorenzo Sandoval, under more adventurous circumstances in a back alley close to the Giardini. But let's give some more information on Lorenzo Sandoval first. The artist Lorenzo Sandoval is part of the Miracle Workers Collective, which is a group of artists, filmmakers, curators, and activists that has responded to an open call, and that has been selected by a jury of 5 people from the international art world to curate the Finnish pavilion. In the jury statement, it says that the collective's proposal, quote, brings a fresh and innovative approach towards cultural producers in Finland while addressing urgent global issues, end of quote. And that's true. Upon entering the Alvar Aalto Design Pavilion, there's an undeniably specific Finnish take on issues that concern the entire world. Let's take the collective itself. It consists of artists from all around the world, and yet, for instance, the marginalized ethnic group of the Sami is a presence in the pavilion. Not only does a row of traditional walking canes lead the way into the exhibition, traditional Sami songs and tales are presented in the central video of the show. So, of course, Lorenzo Sandoval is no stranger to collaboration or to the design of exhibition space. The artist, who was born in 1980 in Madrid, lives in Berlin, and his work is centered around spatial storytelling. Lorenzo actually calls himself an amateur architect, and in his installation he explores international power relation. He's also founder of the Institute for Endotic Research, which is also a project space dedicated to the endotic, which means the opposite of the exotic, and thus the strange environment we find ourselves in every day. Let's hear the conversation with Lorenzo.
We were thinking about things like nationality and how nations are represented, and we thought it's kind of a weird concept and kind of an anachronistic concept. But then we saw the Finnish pavilion. We thought there's a lot of sort of culturally specific things in the pavilion. So maybe you could tell us a little more about that and help us with our confusion. What are those elements?
Well, actually, like one of the points about thinking national identities with the pavilion is going through them. And in the work of Otis, it's very apparent. Like since she's literally through these Sami walking sticks, like they go before and after the pavilion, so crossing this line of the enclosement of the nationality. That's very particular in the Sami culture, because actually they are not a nation, but a huge community that is crossing different nations, as it happened with the Basque in Spain and France, or many other communities. So then, I mean, like together with Oti, that she's working with the Sami, and also with another project that she was bringing with few activists to the iterations. And for example, the iteration in Berlin, they were talking about the rematriation. Like it's like these hats from the Sami that was then the Brandenburger Stiftung presented. The proposal is also like to like bring these items back to where they belong.
But how does this constellation like come together? Because you are not only artists, there are like as well architects, critics, curators. So who decided to bring you together and how?
Yeah, maybe I'm just gonna finish with the question of the nationalities. Like I wanted to add also, like Odi is like a kind of like paradigmatic case as part of the constellation. But if you look at the origins of the members, they have like very different familiar constellations that they are expand through few places in Africa. Also like Giovanna is from Mexico, and David, myself who I'm from Spain. So actually like the question of the identity, it's presented first as a questioning of the national construction inside of the Biennale itself. But secondly, also like rethinking what could be like a community made from Apollo's we, so made of many different backgrounds, so to say. So in that sense, like the whole proposal, it's actually like crossing different storytellings and different approaches, like also reflect, as you were saying now, like with like different professions. So there are like choreographers, writers, curators, architects, photographers, and so on and so forth. So I think like there is this question of understanding like the identity as a process, like as something that it's composed through time, but essentially it really thinks about what it means like to bring differences together.
But we see as well like those sticks, we see in the video itself a lot of Finnish references. So how far could you bring together this ambition of the Finnish cultural ministry to represent the interest of Finland and your vision as artists to go beyond those nationalities?
Well, there was like when we presented the projects, that was like the jury that was actually like the question they were making, like how this project does to do with Finland. And the answer we did, it was we are not interested in thinking about Finland per se, but more like rethinking at these problems with nation and identity, especially in these times where fascism is rising up in this way, and the identities, they are back, these kind of closed identitarian processes, like talk about the pureness and so on and so forth. So in that sense, like the departure point it's Finland because it's a Finnish pavilion, but I think it's something that could be thought from many other locations.
I think Finland is really particular in this case because it's, first of all, a very young nation, and it's always been sort of between Russia and Europe, and particularly Sweden, and it still has two official languages, right? Swedish and Finnish. And yet, as you said, there's this true Finns, this party that's on the rise in Finland. So that's a particularly interesting thing. And is it that you try to create a multitude of voices from that space?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
To have like a series of plurifocal positions inside of the group, it's very fundamental. But I think like how you just described Finland, you can apply to most of the European countries. Because if you think about Spain, there are like 4 languages, not to talk about the Arab heritage and the Arab people living in Spain who are often not from the national narrative. It's the same with England, when there are like, I think like 29 or 27 degrees of nationality, including all the people from the Commonwealth. Same with France, like when you think about the Martinique or the other African colonies, that's there as well. Yeah, and I think like most of the countries in Europe, even some of them, they have centralized structures. They are all like shaped by the relations with in one hand with the colonies, but also like the inner cultural differences among different nations that they are enclosed in each country. So in that sense, like the reflection, again, it's going from Finland, but it's something I would say that you could apply for many countries. And as a matter of fact, there is like a gesture, like it was decided during the process, which I think it's very, very humble, but very strong, that it was changing, at the entrance on the Alto Pavilion, there is like Finland, and now it was covered with plants, and it's only written land. So I think that gesture, like also it's like a very good metaphor for many other things of the process of how we were approaching this construction.
But how came all those gesture and this common work? Because there's like at least 15 people really involved as artists and people named as the main protagonists of the pavilion. So how did it work? What was the process?
Well, I think, for example, like there's like the word collective there. But I think it's important maybe to think about these processes that they were more collective and other like they were more individual, so to say. And I think that's very important because to rethink what collective work could mean, it's very important right now because, for example, like now this morning I was listening to a lecture on the symposium organized by Xavier of a Brazilian psychiatrist who works with theater. And what he was talking about, it's like now in Brazil, the resistance is made by the groups. So by the collectives, so to say, because that's the parties, they are not doing what they should be doing, or they are not parties representing the people, and inside the small groups doing this work. So I think it's important to bring back this notion of collectivity, but also like try to rethink the collectivity not as a brick, which is like normally like a collective people would think about, but actually like as a common space where the multiplicity of positions they could be unfold. And in this way, like that's a little bit what has been happening with the different positions, which, as you were pointing out, they are extremely different, no? But I think you can find overlappings with the different ideas that we are working with.
It's written in the press release that you are making or trying to make a form of collective disobedience. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering, what is for you collective disobedience?
Well, I think it's very clear when it comes to thinking about the national representation. So yeah, again, like with this piece of Audi, like going beyond the pavilion, like crossing the pavilion through, I think that's a very good metaphor of what we're trying to do. And I think also it's like a way of proposing like certain ideas, like could be clues of some of the things. Like for example, in my case with my work, what I'm doing with this movable membrane, that it's like referring to one part of the conversations where we're happening, like it's using the cells as a metaphor for osmotic interchange. But also like for me, it's like how to unfix the space. So basically what I'm proposing with this piece, that it's very simple because at the end it's like a very functional element. But what I want to do is to try to bring a series of elements that you can recombine and generate with them different situations. And at the end, I mean, it's this modular structure to be used as seats, shelves, etc. But because of the design they have, they are never ended. They are not in a final form. So for me, the refusal of having something that is final, that's a way of disobedience. Like when we think about product, politics, discussions, academic writing, and so on and so forth. So I think it's important to translate these ideas of the porosity and the togetherness to physical elements that could allow this disobedience.
So in the sense, it's as well a form of process, this collaboration, if I understand well. So do you plan to continue a form of collaboration with those people? Is it like an ongoing process?
Well, so far now, it's all planned till November. So there are these 2 other iterations that it's gonna be happening. Yeah, and then inside of the collective, there are like synergies that they are happening, like there are collaborations that are coming from before, and there are a series of conversations inside of the collective. Also, it's difficult to imagine to have the conditions again for the same people to keep working together. So it's hard to predict what's going to happen with that. But yeah, I think there are within the members of the group, there are all these conversations that point to future collaborations.
There's one more important thing, the name of the collective. What can you tell me about that? It's the Miracle Workers, right? Mm-hmm. Miracle Workers Collective.
Well, that translates basically into this idea of trying to think the impossible. Trying to be beyond of what we know that normally it's presented as the possible, and then to try to go beyond. For me also, I took a particular thinking on it, when in the text having the publication, and basically for me it's this idea of the miracle. I was linking it to this idea of breaking the normal habits, and then also to think instead of the exhibition, think about the encounters, because if the exhibition it's the ex habitare, ex habitus, like that line of thinking, then for me the encounter actually would be breaking the habits, to produce or propose new habits or spaces or atmosphere that could facilitate all the possibilities, point out to this impossible.
Thank you so much.
It sounds like Venice is well worth a visit this year. And that's it for this episode. Please find photographs, information about the works, pavilions, and more on our website, www.art-werk.ch. Werk is written W-E-R-K. The second part of our Venice special will be released on the 7th of July. In that episode, we will explore the history of the Biennale and more national pavilions. We present exclusive interviews of Dane Mitchell, the artist who represents New Zealand, and Irene Campolmi from the curatorial team of the Estonian Pavilion that features Chris Lemsalu. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the show. This was Unraveled, the Avec podcast. The show is hosted by Bernard Vienat, Philippe Hindahl, and Nina Kettiger, myself. It is produced by Avec. Our theme song and jingle were produced by artist and musician Laura Katsawan. As we are starting new with the podcast, please send comments and suggestions to unraveled@art-werk.ch. Werk is written W-E-R-K. You can find all images of the works and informations discussed in this episode on our page www.art-werk.ch. If you would like to advertise or sponsor one episode, please write at contact@art-werk.ch.